right, voice check. 1, 2, 3. If you guys can hear me, somebody give me a 5x5, or if we're coming through. Ken, give me a voice check.
Checking, voice checking. Checking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay. All right, and a testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Ken.
Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Can my fans hear me?
Who's fans? Excuse me, I have to cut the volume here for just a second while I choke you. All right, Ken, give me another voice check and talk like a manly man.
Talking like a man. 1, 2, 3. Testing.
All right, let's see what we got. 7 minutes here before we go live. Officially.
Gavin says, Ken's fans? Crickets.
Okay, Ken, let's give it another voice check here. I got the communicator moved right up. I got it on top of the Max's Models mug, so it's right up against the mic. So don't shout, just talk in a good, yeah, man, boss. Fake it. Hello.
I'm busy looking through my copies of Old Men magazines.
Well, now wait a minute. I have Old Men magazines here, but what they are is they're Young Men magazines. They're just old copies from the 50s, which I guess technically does make them Old Men magazines. You're going to love some of this cover art, man. I mean, you couldn't put this on a cover today. Yeah, it makes me miss the 50s, and I wasn't even born yet.
I was.
Yeah.
Right smack in the middle of them.
Yeah, you're born, what, 55?
Yep, 55.
Yeah, that's my favorite Chevy. Although I know a lot of guys aren't. I was chatting with Steve's Model Mania, and he's not actually a big Tri-50s fan. He likes some of the other cars better. And I know the Tri-50 Chevys have become like the dominant classic cars, but people tend to forget there were a lot of other cars made. Some of them are pretty awesome. Well, then again, there was Christine.
Oh, she's special.
Whoops. Whoa. Now, if it looks like we're having an earthquake in Florida, it's because my foot is by the tripod. I might actually bump the camera. All right.
Oh, we can't see the camera yet.
Well, let me start bringing down the... Da, 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 da. 67, close enough. You ready to go hot?
Do it.
All right.
I sound good. Yes, I do.
Okay. My favorite line from all of the TV show Firefly was actually from the movie Serenity, where the operative tells him, you can't make me mad, and Nora just goes, with talking about Malcolm, and just spend an hour with him. Well, hello, Glue Troopers. We'll go ahead and kick it off a little early. We got a bunch of the gang is here. A whole bunch of cool stuff to talk about tonight. And first off, I want to thank Bruce up in Canada for one of the things we're going to start talking about. He sent me all of these 1950s vintage magazines called it's Young Men Magazine, Hobbies, Aviation, and Careers. And let me just go ahead and kick up some of the cover art here so you guys can admire this. Let's see. Good Lord. You'd think they'd make this easier to read. Tell you what, let me maximize. That might help. Okay. Here we are. Magazine covers. Here we go. Let's start looking at some of these jewels. This is cover art from the mid-50s versions of Young Men magazine. That's my personal favorite right there. I think it's everybody's personal favorite. But these are really interesting magazines. I mean, I grew up reading Boy's Life, but it was nothing compared to this, because they have sections dedicated to kit model cars, model boats, model planes. They also have like hunting and fishing, how to build all these model airplanes. They basically have the plans in here. But they also have articles on real cars, where to get your Remington ammunition. There's all kinds of ads in here. I'm like, God, this is a magazine I would have read cover to cover every time. We've got ads in here from Pyro. I just noticed that. I didn't have a chance to, I did take some pictures, but anyway. I mean, look at the cover art. I mean, why is this magazine not still in production today? Because I would certainly be a regular subscriber. It blows Fine Scale Modeler out of the water. You know what it is? It's Fine Scale Modeler meets, Outdoor Magazine meets, Car and Driver. And it's exactly the tonic that we need for our young generation of kids today. And it couldn't be any more, manly men doing, guy stuff, real guy stuff. And
Chuck's asking if it's a Canadian publication.
Let me see. I actually haven't had a chance. This is from March 1956. This is the one I really like. And Fly the All Aluminum Plane. Meet the world's most famous yachtsman. Story of the Sword by Jim Triggs and how to shoot good pictures with inexpensive equipment. I should probably read that one. Let's see. Oh my God. I didn't have a chance to take a picture. There's an advertisement in here to join the Army Anti-Aircraft Command. I love it. I am going to be spending some time. These pages are delicate, so I'm going to be real careful. But I don't know. There's a lot of U.S. Air Force advertisements. Here's an Air Force recruiting. Paste the coupon to the postcard and mail it to Airmen Recruiting Information Branch, Box 2202, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio. This looks like an American production, but let me see.
That one picture they're showing
speaking of young men, I thought it said
Army soldier riding on top of what looks like a helicopter.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, what happens when you step off?
What about it?
How do you get off the thing?
Well, the helicopter?
Yeah.
You jump.
You're right. The blade is spinning underneath of you.
Well, you jump real far.
As soon as you jump off, the thing's going to take off and turn you into mincemeat.
Actually, you're talking about this, and there were actually this. I don't think that's the Hiller version. It was a Hiller version also. And one of the problems they have with these things, they're actually a little too stable, and they did talk about what happens if you slip and everything. I mean, of course, those were just technology tests. I'm not seeing where's the information on the magazine itself. Oh my gosh, it has a directory of hobby shops in the back. And pages of advertisements. We're going to talk about some of them. Okay, where is the actual information on the magazine? A lot of advertisements for aviation colleges. Parks College of St. Louis, Missouri. In this issue, here we go. Young men. Nope, this is out of New York. This is an American publication out of New York. All communications the editor should be addressed to young men.
It's a Cuisinart for the infantry.
Well, let's take a look at some of the advertisements that they run. First off, some things are timeless. Here are a couple of the cartoons. Oops, sorry. I just can't understand what attraction these things have that we haven't got. He's gotten models from a model shop. Okay. And this is, people complain about student debt today, and here is, this is from the mid-1950s. So some things are pretty universal. And I think it's, we talk about our problems today like we're the first ones to ever have these problems, but clearly not. And so he's got, I just realized he's got a box with bows on it. Here's your graduation gift, son.
Well, first off, you only have to pay for them once.
Now,
talking about the girl wandering at the hobby shop.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, well, that's like the old joke in firearms. Why do men prefer guns? It's like, well, one of them, which would get you killed if your wife owns a gun. He goes, my 44 doesn't complain when I trade it in for a couple of 22s. And, here we actually have job career advertisements from major aircraft contractors from Northrop and Fairchild. They're not the only ones. I just didn't have a lot of time to put this together because, but anyway, I love this, Northrop Aviation, careers are never dull. It's got the, the tail sitter and, that's not Poga. It's the other one, what they call it, Salmon or whatever. Here you got the Fairchild 123 and this article, come work at Fairchild. We make the 123, which has it's an advertisement for the airplane, basically. But reminds me of that movie. Was it not Best Defense? It was The Deal of the Century. Why do I fly the A-10? Because it kills. That's the name of that tune. And this was in one of them. I love this. This is a scale accurate by view, profile and top view of the Air Force's main aircraft. And I'm like, great resource for modelers, it shows how they're marked and everything, even though it only gives 2 views, but every men's magazine should have something like this in it. I think this is great. And, you think about it, an artist worked really hard for a long time to make this one picture. Now, mind you, it's a centerfold. That's
Ooh, a centerfold.
Yeah, that's Young Man Magazine centerfold. Ooh, look at the curves on that buff, baby. I like the slim lines of that Stratojet. Yeah, baby.
Check out those engines.
Check out those nacelles.
Look at those intakes.
What was it Scotty said in the story? I'd like to check out her ample nacelles. But I just love it. I mean, I'm like, what, more magazines like this? This picture I grabbed real quick. The Civil Air Patrol, and I think maybe they still do a little bit, but the Civil Air Patrol, to try and recruit guys in the Air Force, they would actually take CAP members that had been in a certain length of time, and they would give them a ride. It's got pictures in here of them giving backseat rides in fighters to Civil Air Patrol teenagers. In fact, the article, I think I've got a picture of it later, it says like a teenage jet driver or something like that. I'm like, yeah, I could see how that would hook a young man into the Air Force. And here he is.
Oh, you think?
You think? And here he is telling his story in what they call the universal language. But what I love is the sweaters and the girl with the below knee length skirts and everything. It just you can't get more 1950s than that if you tried. And
the classic hands, depicting aircraft.
Oh yeah. There I was, 30,000 feet, flat on my back, air medals dangling in my face. Now, one thing that this magazine also has, though, it has sections on all kinds of model building. It has a lot on aircraft, and it has a lot on boats, including designs on how to scratch build them, and it has a big section dedicated to model cars. And we've just been talking about the land speed racers last time, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on this live stream. And that thing on top looks like, a model of an LSR, land speed racer, although I think it may be just more functional than anybody's specific car. But a lot of these are motorized and everything, and a lot of the models in this are display models, but a lot of the models are actually like radio control and motorized and U-control and stuff like that.
Well, the U-control, they had a name for those, tourney or tournament or something along those lines.
Oh yeah, gosh, it escapes me. I remember what you're talking about.
They would put them on a long tether.
Yeah, tether cars. I think it was
try and see how fast they could make them go.
I think it was tether cars. And of course, they also have articles on real cars too. This magazine is surprisingly diverse, and with the svelte model, although something doesn't look quite right about those cars. Maybe it's just a retouched photo, but almost looks like she's posing with models of model cars. But
they sort of did have RC cars back there, but they were very primitive. They were just left, right, and center.
Well, you'll see some of the servo stuff later, but here's this is a montage of some of the articles and stuff they had, but this is like artwork. They had an art contest. You could win $50. And in fact, this cover of the magazine from a guy named Trigg is the one that won the $50 prize. And but that's a James M. Triggs, Supersonic Jim, the lightning artist. Apparently a young Jack Linwood. But he these are other contestants for their art contest. That's pretty cool looking stuff. I mean, that you look at the cars and the airplanes. The airplanes are any of the boats. The airplanes are way ahead of everything else. But even the styling of the cars in those pictures was closer to the 60s and the 50s. I'm just kind of impressed by this magazine. Some of the stuff it had in there, and a lot of the stuff was from this company, America's Hobby Center. And I don't know if any of you guys remember them. Apparently, they had offices San Francisco, Chicago, Washington, and New York. But I don't know if I've heard of this company or not. The America's Hobby Center. And I don't know if it was all mail order or not, sort of the internet of its day. But this is, this was, I guess you would call it the eBay of its day, or the squadron shop of its day. If you wanted to order something, these magazines, because even well-stocked hobby shops could only carry so much stuff because you got to move the inventory. But this company, America's Hobby Center, is advertised all over these magazines. They're probably their single biggest sponsor, maybe except for the military. What I wanted to ask you guys was, does anybody remember this operation or ever order anything from them or familiar with them? Hey, Steve. There were kits made on the chassis of existing cars. Oh, okay. But I'm just old enough to remember. Oh my God! I just noticed. Look at the airplane in the upper right of this picture. It's like they took a Sea Dart but put an 049 engine on it and put it on floats.
2 floats. Sea Darts only had 1.
No. One of them had 2 skids and one of them skis and one of them had 1 ski. But they weren't floats. They were skis.
Right.
And one of them had 2 and one of them had 1. In fact, I think the one that had 2 was the one that had the problems. They went to 1 to reduce vibration, if I remember correctly. But
no, it was the other. I think it was the other way around because the center one, it was attached right underneath where the pilot sat.
Oh, okay.
So every time the ski got bounced around, it went right up the pilot's rear end.
Because somebody got the bright idea to put an F-102 on water skis. I'm telling you, the guys at Convair were either certifiable geniuses or certifiable lunatics. And it's a pretty thin thread between those two sometimes. But whoever look at this model they designed. It's got like a Cox. It's got like an 049 engine. It probably would have been a Cox back then. It probably would have been a Winmac. But look at this. They actually made a Delta ski float plane thing. Oh my God, it's like an abomination, but I can't stop looking at it.
Did it really work, or was it just
I have
cool?
no idea, and I want to know who was a good enough U-control pilot to fly that thing. And, well, it says no. It says Dart water ski speedboat, so I guess not.
Oh, it didn't fly. It just looked like it was flying.
Well, it says Dart water ski speedboat.
You couldn't control that thing. You'd have to be in the water to do it.
Maybe it was just free float, just whang, let it go. And, oh my God, that thing! It's horrifying. It's like Frankenstein, but I can't turn my eyes away.
Try, Max. Try. Just close your eyes.
Steve says is talking to Joe. They went out of business. Keep up on the comment thread there, Ken. You're not here to party.
I'm working on it.
So somebody said that AHC went out of business. Is that what it was, or?
You actually see it several seconds before I see the comment.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure about that, but that's pretty wild. Man, I want to get one of those just to see what would happen when we let it loose. Off we go. Now,
you have to put the rudder on slightly cocked so it would go in a circle. Otherwise, it'd run away from you.
Chasing fish across the lake. Now, I put up some of the advertisement. I scanned some of the advertisements. And Cleveland Models, by the way, right here is still in business. I mean, it's just one guy selling their plans and everything and maybe some kits. But Cleveland is still around. But I look at all these advertisements, $3.95. It comes with an engine. But, the Atwood Cadet, $2.95. But I just love these ads, and I'm just barely old enough to remember seeing ads like this. And, grab bag. The ABC monoline controls. From Schulenburg, Texas. Victor Stanzel and Company. A specialty fuel and everything. I love this kind of stuff because it really goes back to the heyday when everybody was building models and it was, and I know some of these are just models you put up on the shelf. Some of them, a lot of them are made. There's your big servos, and you can see why the later radio control models were so limited because look at these servos are probably half the size of your fist. But by the way, Colonial Skimmer is the kind of airplane my dad was building for real, I think. But down in our basement, but he wasn't building a kit model. But I don't know. I just say, here's your brand new Super Stunt 19 engine, $7.95. And it doesn't sound like much today, but $7.95 in the 50s, that's a day's wages.
Easily.
Now Sterling was in business for a long time, and
those aren't really the servos that like you think they are.
Mm-hmm.
They're very, very primitive.
Yeah, they're not exactly stepper motors.
No, and back then, They didn't have proportional servos. They had what they called reed radios, which were, left, right, and middle. That was your choice. It wasn't until probably around 69, 70, 71, something like that they actually came out with proportional servos.
Okay. Well, here are some of the other articles and stuff in the magazine. Like I say, they didn't just do models. This is an amazingly well-rounded magazine. They did, firearms advertisements. They did fishing. They have a whole thing on here, how to set up your rod and reel. I mean, indoor sports, outdoor sports. What it doesn't really cover is much in the way of athletic sports. There's another real car article on the Ghia Carmen. I always called it the Carmen Ghia. By the way, I know that was a Volkswagen. One of my school teachers had one. I imagine most of us remember the thing. But the look of it, unless it was a Ferdinand Porsche body style, it always looked more Italian than German. And I was trying to figure out if that was actually the way the Germans made their sports cars, or if they got someone, to help them with it, because I saw the Ghia name and assumed it was some Italian in it. It's a boy's life for hosers. But what I really like is they have all these military ads. And I mean, the military's in these magazines in a big way. Mostly the Air Force. It makes sense that a technically oriented magazine would, try. The Air Force would push them for guys who have an interest in mechanics, electronics, and that kind of stuff. There's that top that Mike Machat was just talking about on the Republic aircraft that goes straight up and then back. That was their patented design. But I always love these kind of advertisements. I mean, you just drip with patriotism. There it is, Teenage Jet Jockeys. That's the one I was talking about, where the Civil Air Patrol they'd give the kids a ride in a jet. And I imagine a lot of those kids joined the Air Force. And I remember these kinds of boards like that, actually a layout of electronic systems that's how you would learn the systems on an aircraft. They actually put them up on a board. How would you like to play on this team? As he lobs a nuke towards those godless commies. I mean, back when the military was not afraid to military, it wasn't join for college money or join to it was join to go protect mom and apple pie from the villainous other people. And they were completely unapologetic about their mission. Can you imagine going back to the 50s, the military back then, and going, you're going on a humanitarian mission? They'd scratch their head and go, we're going to bomb humanitarians? How half a century changes things. But, the Carmen Ghia body was an Italian design. I suspected as much. Always nice to know I was right about something. But anyway, I want to thank Bruce for sending me these. I don't. If I had heard of this magazine, I didn't remember it. But this was a real. I think what I really enjoy was just looking at these advertisements. Can you imagine trying to put advertisements like these in a newspaper or a magazine today? I don't even know if there are any.
Maybe that's why there's a pilot shortage.
Ken, those things are probably a little more linked than a lot of people would like to acknowledge, but I think it's all part of the same formula, yes. And anyway, it's Teenage Jet Jockeys. Man, I would have done handsprings and lost 20 pounds when I was a teenager to get a ride in a military fighter jet. But
that's saying something.
Well, back then I was actually able to lose weight. The younger burned everything up faster. So I just thought you guys would enjoy that. And
oh yeah, I remember. William Kirchmeier is talking about his Cox Stuka.
I had the black one. Yeah.
I had I don't remember exactly what it was. Something like a P-51 or something like that. Yeah, he said one flight. Yep, that's all we got out of it too. Went around right into the ground. But I kept on playing with it. I made the cord a lot shorter, maybe about 7-8 feet long, something like that, and I would just pull it around, and I learned to fly it that way.
Yeah, well, the Cox Stuka, we crashed it every time we flew it. I never flew it. My older brother did. I could barely fly their little PT-19 trainer until I got older. And, but it was a cool looking airplane, but it was just a handful, and there's some people that can fly, but you've really got to know what you're doing. It had real touchy controls, and it really just didn't have enough. I don't think it had enough elevator. Maybe it had to. I don't know, but it was all over the place. And, even the Guilo Stuka that I flew was a bit of a handful. Of course, I cratered it on its maiden also. That's living in internet glory out there somewhere. And but the these kinds of magazines came out just as plastic kit models were really starting to move into their own. And but 10 years later. Well, 10 years later, you had Fine Scale Modeler, and I think magazines are getting more dedicated. Of course, print's always been a very hyper-competitive medium. Well, broadcast and journalism always have. But I just think that's the kind of magazine that kids should be reading today. But, of course, I guess it's a generational thing. You always want the young people to, but one reason I would love to give kids a kit model car and say, here, build this, is hopefully as they're building it, they would start to learn something about cars. Because they're not getting really any education. What is this hose? What is this pipe? What do these things do? And building models is a fantastic way to stimulate people's curiosity about things and get them interested in learning what makes these things tick. I don't even think they still have shop class anymore, do they?
No. Are you kidding? Junior high school kids with sharp implements?
And
holy
drill.
cow, somebody could get hurt.
Oh, I just it's on my phone, I think. There was a picture I saw, and I don't know if I have it on the computer, but let me just take a quick look. But it couldn't have been more 1970s if it tried. No, I don't think I have it. Basically, it shows a guy riding his motorcycle with his 3-year-old on the handlebars, and I think the caption read something like, "You can guarantee mom's not home." I was like, "What? Everybody? There it is." I don't think this will work, but I'll give it a shot. But
I'm on the podcast.
You can't really.
My uncle got a Cox Banshee for Christmas, and my father and my uncle shadowed it within 10 minutes.
The official sports drink when I was a kid, it's a water hose. No, I was thinking about it. I mean, I built an entire Air Force of model aircraft. I can count all the cars I built in one hand. I built at least a reinforced company's worth of armor and a small flotilla's worth of ships. But I still got outside to ride bicycles, ride mini bikes, ride small motorcycles. My dad taught me to fly. Although I put it through the ditch a couple of times, learning how. Eventually, when I was 16, learned to drive a Jeep with a clutch. And but we just thought this is what you did, I mean, we didn't think we were doing anything that, it's what we do, We're 70s kids. We're the ones that would, stack up the ramps and try to jump trash cans with our bicycles. And explain to our parents, why, how come we kept getting square tires and square wheels?
Oh, yeah.
Some of the toys, Chris talked about the drones, and I have a drone right here, and it's fun. I did some of the footage of the Tarbis that I use in the videos, and it's great for some things, but I haven't flown the RCs in years, but the RCs are fun, but although I've lost a couple of drones, just flew away, lost signal, away they went, and
you need the kind that comes back when they lose signal.
Yeah, mine didn't have that feature. By the way, getting back to kit models. So, You guys know I left the P-47, the little MPC. Oh, I got the box over there. The little MPC P-47 to the hotel staff. Now, I saw in the comment stream a couple of comments. Now, I haven't researched this, but during the Second World War, when the and now for something completely different, when the U.S. got away from the circular roundels and started putting the white bars, identification bars on the roundels, they did put only on top of the left wing and bottom of the right wing. But several people noted that shortly after we'd switched, apparently there were still some fracture-side incidents with P-47 Thunderbolts. People thought they were Focke-Wulfs because, they're both big radial engine fighters. And so some squadrons did put markings on top and bottom of both wings. And I had a couple of folks that were commenting, oh, the pattern was this way. In general, that is correct. But I don't think this was ever an official Air Force thing. I think it's just some squadrons did because they were tired of getting their airplanes peppered by friendly fire. Because there's really no such thing as friendly fire unless you're the one sending it downrange. In fact, when I was in the infantry, we had a thing, 33 Rules of Warfare by Murphy. Yeah, there were Murphy's Laws of Land Warfare. Number 1, friendly fire isn't. And number 2, if the enemy's in range, so are you.
Good point.
Number 3, the easy way is always mine. It's kind of like the Ferengi Rules of Acquisition. And I can only remember I still remember the first one. What exploitation begins at home. That's why it's perfectly fine to make your kids do chores. In fact, I think you should. But this next trip, I might take a model with you. I'm not sure if I'm going to take this little Nito Japanese trainer jet because this is actually an unusual little kit, and and it's old. It's got a $1 price tag. But
and Murphy loved computers.
What's that? What?
Somebody said Murphy was an optimist, and I said, yeah, he also would have loved computers.
Yeah, well, Murphy was. That they said that the last one was Murphy was an optimist. Actually, you know what? Maybe I will take this kit with me. It's pretty simple, and I can paint it afterwards. When I was a kid, and on the rare occasion that I had paint, usually I'd try to get black paint. The 3 things always painted black: the tires, the engines, and the interior. Because if you couldn't detail it, then just make it dark where the lack of detail doesn't show. And I think I will take this kit with me. It doesn't have that many parts to it. It'll make a good little road build. But it's an interesting subject, so I'll bring it back to get painted. I won't give this one away. Like I say, usually jets are easier to take with you on road builds because propellers and things like that just get snapped off so easily. I did a couple of World War I biplanes, and they were all broken when I got back and had to fix them, but I painted them up, and they came out looking okay. They're out in the Tarbis now. But I'm starting to run into, as every model builder does, storage issues. So I know a couple of folks, I'd like a model of this, a model of that, and I'm kind of like, if I've got one on the shelf, then I might say, hey, you know what, I'll build it for you and gift it to them, because you want to build the kit, but you want to give it a good home. And,
at what point do you decide that you finally ran out of space?
When you spend more than an hour with the model in your hand going, nope. If I put no, and start hanging them from the ceiling, that is when you are officially out of space. Or you add a room to the house. Don't laugh. That's been talked about. And,
okay.
You've
been very fortunate that your wife let you buy display cases and put them in the living room.
And it's amazing how quickly a display case fills up. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys have gone out and seen Phil Separano's video. He has a massive Aurora collection. In fact, that Batcopter that I was showing at the beginning, which, by the way, in case you didn't know, okay, okay, say Ken, you're in a few seconds you're going to see a picture. That's when you might have too many.
Steve's Models Mania, I like that one. You moved to a bigger house, Ken, like you just did.
Again, been talked about. This Batcopter from Aurora. Now,
when you move the furniture outside.
Well, it is old furniture.
You need a bigger Tarbus. I like these comments.
Yeah, I tell you right now, this has been the subject of more than one morning coffee. This Batcopter is, I believe, from Phil's collection, and I'm not sure I got that picture. Probably did a screen grab when he was panning around, but I was like, okay, Phil, that never went into production. Where did you get the box? This was something that was patterned, and that photograph is probably the pattern put together. But I don't think I don't know. I don't think they ever cut the molds, or they may have cut the molds and done some test shots, or for whatever reason didn't sell it. Frankly, I think the Batcopter would sell off the shelves, but I forget why it didn't go into production. Probably towards when Diker was taken over, but and he would shut down all kit model development. The only reason the DC-10 got made was because it was already too far down the pipe. But they may have knocked out some comps or something, or maybe some test boxes. But I mean, I'm sorry, I'm getting off point. What I was going to bring up is that he has a good chunk of his house dedicated to storing this stuff. I mean, entire rooms, garages, basements, works. And he's got his video. It's over an hour long. He takes you on a tour. He even has a couple of pattern pieces from one of the original models that did not go into production. But it's a testament, and a lot of the stuff is still in boxes. And he has some of the stuff that Andy Anchus gave him, which are total one of a kinds. I mean, if his house ever burns down, that stuff would be lost to the universe. But we really need a kit model museum. But the storage is an enormous problem after you get to a certain time. Now, some people give the models away, but a lot of people just don't have, I mean, even if they like what you're building a model of, they just don't have any desire in having it in their house. They don't have a place to put it either. What are you giggling at?
I don't know how to pronounce this. Oxyferino.
Uh-huh.
Move the wife out. You'll be surprised how much space that will open up.
Yeah, that's not going to fly.
That's not an option in your case.
I do not think that means what you think that means. But I have eyeballed the bookcase and thought, the books could go in storage.
And there's that one where the wife came to me and said, if you don't move let's see, how's it go? You're going to have to decide between me and your models. I sure am going to miss her.
Yeah, no.
In your case, no. That's not an option.
But not in your case either. Who are you trying to bluff?
Yeah, that's true.
So anyway, what amazes me is I'm sitting here looking at my bookcase, and it's got to have 100 books on it, right? And I'm thinking, I actually told the wife, if I take these books and put them someplace else, I could put models on the shelf. And I did the math. I'm like, I would lose 100 books, and I'd get maybe a dozen models on there. And that's 148 scale, single inch and stuff. Mustangs and Focke-Wulfs. But I was like, holy crap. It's just amazing because now model cars and tanks aren't so bad because they're, relatively rectangular and you can line a lot of them up. But airplanes, because they got wings on them, and helicopters, if they have more than 2 rotor blades, get the same way. They have a lot of reach, a lot of arc on them. That's why some guys build their model helicopters with the blades folded, just so they can set more of them on the shelf. Yeah. Makes Navy equipment popular with the folding wings. And in fact, the Wildcat I have in 1/32 scale, the old Revell kit, I got one wing folded up, so it and all the other stuff will fit on the shelf. And you never thought that that Grumman engineers in the 1930s would design a wing fold mechanism that would be helping model builders store their kits in the 21st century. But there you go. But you never know. It's like people who paint, like Roscoe Turner painted his racing plane this really complicated color, the red lion plane, the beige with the red trim all over it and everything. And when I got my first Weedle Williams, and by the way, guys, it's pronounced Weedle, the Weedle Williams airplane. This is a Weedle Williams. I said Waddell like everybody else, and apparently it's pronounced Weedle. And there's actually a museum, I think in Louisiana where they're from, that has three replicas in there. They're freaking mad, just beautiful. And there's one of them at the Crawford Automobile and Aviation Museum that I saw. It's Roscoe Turner's old plane, the one with a big 1,000-horse engine on it. you look at those things and you get a good close look at them. You see all the finery and detail, and it makes you want to make your models better. But you're like, when these guys were coming up with these outlandish, highly detailed paint schemes, did they even stop to think about how difficult they were making life for model builders 50 years later? I mean, you know, if I ever find this airplane, we're going to have a nice, simple, straightforward paint job on it. And that's one of the reasons.
I was going to say that, modelers, they have a problem storing all these models, but guys like me who also fly radio control airplanes, they're a lot bigger. So you can't have nearly as many of them.
Well, a radio controlled aircraft, you normally expect to store that in the garage. And I've actually thought about putting some shelves in the garage to put the extra models in, but I'm like, that's getting a little, they're going to get busted because it's the garage. You're always moving stuff around. And it's kind of like you're abandoning them to the wasteland. They're out in the garage. Not to mention the heat and humidity ain't going to do them any favors. But
yeah, the heat will definitely affect them.
Models
the decals are yellow.
Yeah, well, yeah, because decals actually rust, and that's the yellowing. But I kit models are like me. They're beautiful yet delicate, and so
what?
A little slow on the uptake on that one. I thought you'd laugh a lot faster than that.
I had a mouthful of food. I didn't want it all over my computer.
You're eating during the live stream?
Please forgive me. I'm sorry.
We'll talk later. So anyway, getting back to the NPC kit that I made, and I actually brought everything in here, and I got the box, but I can't reach it. But this kit, a lot of people were asking about it. Was it the old Heller kit? I think it was the old Airfix kit, but yes, Heller, Airfix, and Humbrol were all pulled under one umbrella at one point. And somehow Heller's managed to survive instead of Airfix. In fact, they've even upped their game a little bit. But Heller should have gone away a long time ago. How they managed to, keep themselves around is a small miracle. But a lot of these companies aren't the same companies they were before. People buy the rights to the names and everything and maybe get the molds, but they're in different countries. They're completely different people doing it. I mean, Revell is a classic example. The name Revell is around, but it's not the Revell of, Venice, California. And it's not but I mean, I'm glad they're still there doing stuff. But same for Monogram. It's not the Monogram of Morgan Grove.
Bill Paul brings up an interesting point. He says, you fly RC, you crash RC. Problem takes care of itself.
Yeah, storage issues.
Pretty much, yeah.
I don't. The only RC I haven't splattered yet is that Cirrus you got me, and only flew it a few times. And that's a pretty easy airplane to fly. But did you ever get the parts for yours? I know you were looking for some parts.
Nope, they never made any parts for it. Not one.
Well,
if you crashed it and you broke it, tough.
Maybe next time I'm heading down to Lauderdale, you're heading up here. Maybe I'll bring you that one so you can you getting out to fly at all? Because I haven't. Last time I flew.
No, I haven't. No, I think last time I flew was with you.
Yeah, and
although in the move, I did have to sacrifice 2 airplanes. They just would not fit in the car.
Yeah. Oh, did you take the wreckage of the 262?
No, that was one of the ones I had to sacrifice.
Tell me you saved at least the engines and the electronics.
Oh, yes.
Oh, thank
God. We spent about an hour prying the electronics out of it.
The fuselage was destroyed. I'm not worried about it. It was a second fuselage anyway. But if you'd left those motors behind, I was going to, we definitely were going to talk afterward. Trey's back from Pam's Con.
And I kept something very special for you.
Ooh, shucks.
I kept the tail.
Aha! Aha! One more for my wall of shame.
Yes, exactly. Next time we get together, I'm going to present it to you.
Hey guys, Trey's made it back. He just got back from Pam's Con, and I'm sure he'll do a video on that. And Trey's, if you have any photos you want to shoot to me real quick, maybe I can put them up here on the live stream if you have anything particular you wanted to show. But I would love to have gotten there, but it just wasn't happening. I came crawling in about 3 o'clock this morning, and I got up. Man, I managed to sleep pretty well last night, or I should say this morning. But I'm right out tomorrow afternoon, and Monday I have an 0400 wake up for an 0500 show. So it's and it's a long trip, but you know, money. You know, they made me stop printing my own money, so now I have to work for it. But
Richard asked me about the P-38. No, I haven't had a chance to work on it yet. I got a set of projects in this new house as long as my arm, so I suspect it's going to be a little while before I actually get to build anything.
Just keep it all together. Don't lose anything, because when the time comes, we're going to spread out a nice area where you can work unmolesticated, you know. And
oh yeah, absolutely.
Do you have a 2-car garage in this new house?
I do.
By the way, you know, I think Monday night I'm going to be in West Palm. So
yeah, you told me about it.
So,
is that the night you were planning on coming up?
Yeah, I think we actually get in about 11, but I'll probably need a nap because that's when I get up at 4 a.m. So, but that'll be fine because you got to finish your work day. How long of a drive is it for you to West Palm from the new place?
It's about just a little over an hour.
Ugh. Okay. Well, I'm there for 2 days, but I won't make you come both times. I won't make you drive all the way down both times. That's too much. But I want to see the house.
Whichever one's longer for. Whichever one you're in town longer for.
That'd be the first one. Okay, so anyway, getting back to the kits, I was talking about the NPC. You guys saw in the picture, it had a lot of wing bow and everything, and it's kind of typical of a mid '60s Airfix kit, not at their zenith of their quality, and the bolts definitely getting old. But that one was about a 1983 reproduction, and the thing is, despite the warped plastic and everything and the bad fit, a little bit of work, it's still, and I didn't even paint it, it still actually looked not bad, you know? I mean, not, but then I look at that Academy P-47, which, of course, the molds are cut a half a century later. But I've heard some people kind of ragging on the Academy kits, but the ones I've built, I've actually been very impressed with. The mini crafts have been good, too. A few little fit issues, but I can't really complain about them. The level of detail is on par with what you used to get in 1/32 scale kits. And I imagine they've got lasers or something, you know, improved to cut the dies with, to cut the molds with. But I haven't been disappointed with them. Now, I understand some of their older stuff's not so great, but apparently some of these kits, the Stuka that I built, and somebody sent me another one, so I look forward to doing that one as well. And it was really detailed and good kit, and it looks great when it was done. It went together without any real argument. There weren't any problems that weren't self-inflicted, and I'm really there. I was almost got his name, I forget, but there was a I don't know if he's an Australian or English YouTuber who was saying why he'd never buy Tamiya. And his complaint is that the kits go together too easily. And I kind of scratched my head on that. I'm like, well, everybody's got their thing. You know, I guess some people just like the challenge. Personally, I like the parts to fit without an argument. But I'd never heard anybody complain that a kit fit together too well. And those kits I got from...
Maybe they met and went together too easily.
Well, that's what he meant.
You know, I mean, not that the parts were bad fit. They just snap fits.
No, the problem he had was they fit without any argument. That everything was so well made. He felt there was no challenge to building them, and you know, a little part of me is kind of like, okay, I sort of understand what you're saying, but I'm gonna have to say nay.
Darkwood, yeah, the guy's a nut.
Well, you know, I didn't want to say it, but I'll let you guys say it.
I saw somebody come up with a comment earlier. They had a model of a Boeing 247. How many people made a model of that?
Not very many, and I don't recall ever seeing one. I don't know if it was Roden. That's one of the things I like about Roden. Roden makes kits that a lot of aircraft that a lot of people don't do, like the Heinkel 70 and planes like that, and the early pre-war Heinkel airliner. Now apparently they're terrible to build. One of them was done for the viewer's build, and the builder was telling me that it was just fought him every bit, like that Mach 2 little X-13 that I made. That thing fought me every inch of the way. But when I was done, I was like, hey, you know what? It looks good on the shelf from a distance. And you can almost tell how well a kit went together by where it's placed in the shelf. If it's in the back, you're hiding the blemishes.
Good point.
And how come your models all face this? How come your models don't face the same direction? Because I'm hiding the bad side. The other side is like how you could look at my models and go, Max, all of your airplanes, as we're facing the cabinet, all your airplanes are turned to the left. Okay. And the reason is simple. I tend to hold the model with this hand, and I tend to hold the model with this hand. What was that?
That was Debbie leaving the room.
But I tend to hold the models with my right hand while I'm painting and everything, which means the right side has 4 fingerprints and the left side has 1 fingerprint. It's easier to cover 1 thumbprint than 4 fingerprints. So that's why all my models face that way. And yes, I'm sort of kidding. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. Maybe. But anywho, that's but and models do have a good side. And that side would be the one that needed the least putty. I was trying to read some comments here.
Wait, you just didn't have.
Oh, somebody knew who I was. Somebody knew who I was talking about because they're talking about it. It was Harry. I think that's who it was. Yeah. Slugo's like, Harry's weird. I think that was the guy. Well, everybody's got their thing, and so
well, some people get bored easily and they like a challenge.
I can get that, but look, if you want a challenge, you don't get a bad kit. You want a challenge, scratch build something, or just build the Felix stove. It's a great kit, trust me. It's a challenge. Heck, build any World War I airplane and do the rigging. You'll be challenged, I promise.
Oh yeah.
And let me just check. See if Trey, are you still there? Did you send any pictures from Pam's Con? I should check my email. I haven't checked my email because I have like 148 emails. Like, I don't want to get half of which are spam, and I still got to go through the spam folder for all the stuff that's not spam. Oh, got an email from Tom Daniel. Okay. Tom Daniel just sent me an email, and he told me something. I apparently used a picture of the wrong part of Los Angeles. He said that he was from East Los Angeles, and the image I used was from the ritzy west side of LA, MacArthur Park. Big palm trees and high-rise buildings. Okay. So, oops. Well, I've only, count all the times I've been to LA on one hand. Actually, I don't even know if I've been in LA proper or not. I was in Chino and, oh gosh, more places than I can count. Anyway, it's always nice to hear from TD. And I hope you guys have gotten started on your Tom Daniel inspired builds. As I said this morning, thank you for the tires. And what?
You want to try a challenge? Try the AMT Opel GT. That one created a whole new language for it.
But you have to learn to cuss in German.
Maybe Klingon.
Hold on. As long as we're talking about that, I do have a meme for that one I can toss up here while we're chatting. Well, so anywho, getting back to the I had it here somewhere. Stuff keeps getting in your way until you look for it, and then it manages to hide. It's like this weird little facet of the universe. I had a meme, but basically it was from Lord of the Rings, or one does not simply build a 1/72nd scale model without cussing.
Of course not.
And it's probably on my phone. But the new, I gotta admit, like everybody, I've used my share of blue language. And about 2 weeks.
Dragon tank kits, 1,200 pieces of which 1,100 are tank tracks.
Yeah, I actually a couple of weeks ago, I forget what happened. I don't think I hurt myself, but I stopped it, and I think I dumped paint on myself, and I cussed up a blue storm in the TARDIS. That's why it's blue. And to the point that my wife, who was in the house, came outside to check on me. She's like, "Are you okay? Like, what? I could hear you in the house." I was like, I thought maybe, we're out here bleeding to death or something. I'm like, nah, baby, if I was bleeding to death, my voice would fade. But
your voice carries.
And I'm cussing up a storm like she's like, talk about first world problems. You're screaming up a storm because you lost a little piece of plastic or dumped some paint on yourself. Not because, any of the real serious things in life have taken place. I'm like, yeah, well, it's all about perspective. When you're focused on something, and something goes wrong, you're in that mental place where you just, all the pressure has come to one point, you just go up like a volcano. It doesn't matter that it's not consequential to the safety of the universe. What matters is I was focused on this, and now you ripped that away from me. And what I want to know is this magnetic, they say that, only ferrous metals are magnetic. But I'm convinced there's a magnetic attraction between styrene and the point hardest to reach in a room. Because you can drop a piece of plastic and it will bounce and disappear in a place where you cannot find it. When you do find it, you cannot reach it.
It's amazing how much energy those little pieces have.
It really is. I mean, I'm pretty sure that a couple of my parts are still in orbit. Somehow they reach escape velocity. I mean, I kid you not. I have Johnson, and her parts bounce off the ceiling. And I've
never had that one.
It a little low ceiling, but still, it's just one of those things that.
Good hearing too.
Well, when you hear the ping, I've learned to just close my eyes. If it just listen what part of the room the echo comes from, where it hits the ground. But my God, people talk about it's impossible for something to go this way, bounce, go like the Kennedy, the magic bullet theory. That bullet would have had to go ding, ding, ding. And there's no way we could do that. And oh yeah, go chasing a piece of styrene that you popped off the sprue. I guarantee you, it can cut 4 right angles and still do a loop and slide safely into a crevice. And how is it no matter what color you paint the floor or carpet the floor, that's going to be the color of the parts that you lost? I know some people put plastic baggies over their hands, over what they're cutting, so like a shot trap.
I actually developed a search pattern. You ever done that?
Yes, I have, and sometimes it works. Well, you remember about a couple of months ago, I was sitting there knocking parts off the top of the display cabinet because I'd had a piece take off on me, and I was trying to repeat what the plastic would do, and it actually worked. I actually found the other part. And I was like,
I've done that.
Actually worked.
Okay,
a reenactment of the crime.
Yeah, exactly. Let's drop this and see where it goes. Oh, okay. Did not see that coming.
Yeah, well.
Gremlins like the taste of styrene. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, Strike clearly lives in my house.
Carpet equal plastic eating monster.
I see that Steve over Steve's Model Mania got himself a Rodin 720, Boeing 720B for the Ukraine build. I'm working on the DC-7. Or was it a DC-6? That one that was sent to me. And I think I'm going to put it up in the markings. One of my first officers' dads flew for a Puerto Rican freight hauler. And I forget the name. It was AMSAT. Anyway, I think I'm going to do it up in those colors. That's one thing.
Oh, that could be fun. Learning to swear in Turkish.
Yeah, the nice thing about here in America, you can probably do it just about anywhere and get away with it. It's actually not a bad idea. Learn to swear. It can't just be a foreign language. It has to be one that's not common.
Klingon.
Believe it or not, there might be just a few too many Klingon speakers around. Oh my gosh, I'm getting Google security alerts. Oh dear. All I have to do is get in my credit card information. They'll fix everything. Okay.
You know, you always find the piece in the last place you look.
I would hope.
You know why, don't you?
Because hopefully you quit looking.
Exactly.
Okay, now we have a few more pictures in here. Let's see. I showed you the military ads. Did I? Not that one. Come on, where is it? Oh, there it is. So, I finished reading that book I was talking about. The, just lean over here. I'll just move over here. So.
No, I don't have a red shirt on.
Mr. Spock, Captain Kirk, Dr. McCoy, and Ensign Ricky are beaming down to a planet. Guess who's not coming back?
Oh, that's a good one. Swearing in sign language. Oh, man.
I already know how to do that. So, I was saying, I finished reading that book, the Speed Duel, and I gotta admit, you know, I remember reading about Craig Breedlove and seeing the Spirit of America and everything that cover magazines in the 60s when I was about the 3rd, 4th grade. I would have been 69, 70, but excuse me, I didn't appreciate how fast the records kept falling. These guys would knock each other off the record block within a week. And I still think that all of these cars are underrepresented in kit model world. There's probably some easy money for somebody to, because they have very simple lines. It would not be hard to knock out the molds and everything. I still think this is a lost opportunity for the kit model world. But although there were a lot more guys involved, these are the 4 that the book seems to center around a lot. And, ooh, pork loin. I like that, Chris. My mom used to make a killer Jamaican jerk. But, of course, Craig Breedlove is still around. And he's in his 80s. But world's fastest U-turn, 600 miles an hour. But you read about how they got their jet engines and all this other stuff. I did not appreciate what hand-to-mouth, underfunded projects these were. Even when they got big sponsors to give them $25,000, $30,000, and even adjusting for today's money, that's just nothing. Breedlove estimates that you couldn't even begin to go for the current world speed record, land world speed record, for less than $15 million. And he even said probably double that, and I think he's right. That'd be a $30 million project if you could do it. And the Brits have already gone Mach 1 plus, so they hold the record, and probably always will. TD's friend.
Wouldn't it be easier if somebody just took an old fighter and took the wings off and put some wheels on it?
Are you looking at these cars, Ken? That's basically what they are.
I know. That's where I got the idea from. They engineered it the wrong way.
Yeah, it's not exactly like, F-18 engines are laying around, although some of these guys, how they manage to lay their hands on these things bordered on the criminal. They did, because they didn't have to go back in airplanes. They could use engines that were not safe for flight. And then, it's out of balance because it broke a turbine blade. Let's just take off the offsetting blade and it's back in balance. And I'm like, as a pilot, I'm like, cringe. Get away from me.
Would that work?
Enough to push a car along. I mean, like I say, you don't have, they do have an even number of blades. So usually 24 or 28. And
yeah, but I would think that it would lose a lot of back pressure through that missing blade.
Yeah, it can, but you're staying down in the thick air. You're at sea level, or within a couple thousand feet of sea level. I'm not sure how far the Bonneville salt flats are, but it's not like you're going up to 30,000 feet with them, where you'd really notice it. And they've had jets come back shot up with blades missing and all kinds of damage done to them. turbine engines can be surprisingly robust, provided they don't, of course, if they come apart in flight, though, that's a different story, with their full throttle. But they have had them take surprise. Well, actually, the plenum stage engines, the old plenum annular, what is it, can annulars, or what would they call? They had basically the big disc with a compressor on each side. Those could take a lot of abuse. An axial flow engine with all those fan blades spinning would have a lot more trouble with it. But they've had guys that have nursed them back, bent up, as long as you don't get a fire.
I get lots of comments here saying that somebody did just what I had suggested. They took an F-104.
Yeah, that thing barely flew to begin with, so they'd be the one to work with. 7 feet of wing on each side. My God. Well, the Air Force gave Clarence Kelly Johnson a job. Take the F-104. We want an airplane that'll go Mach 2. They wanted this in 1953. And so, well, what do? You take the biggest engine and put the smallest airplane in. The F-104 was basically the Carroll Shelby design of airplanes. It was a Cobra. Let's just take the big honking engine and put a 300-pound body on it. And, good God, I know some people that flew those things, and you were either scared to death of that airplane or you loved it. Reg Fisher loved flying that airplane. He was a young second lieutenant. And back in the days where you could pretty much just check out a jet, cheap gas was cheap, and, you had to stay proficient. And, it was... I just can't envision them doing that today. Hey, I want to take my fighter up, go fly around for a couple hours. Okay. And, and he was talking about, going up and going, I spent the weekend, went to San Francisco and came back, and it was just a proficiency flight. And the only thing the old man was worried about was the weather, because, it was not really a good instrument platform. And, back in those days, he goes, there wasn't a prohibition, it's going Mach 1, so we'd go up, and if it was a short, if we had the fuel, we'd just light the burner, yeehaw! Man, like I said, the 50s really were the heyday. And, but they lost a lot of airplanes, too, and a lot of pilots due to mishaps, because those early jets were a handful. That's why the T-38s are so tricky to fly. Build a model of a T-38 Talon, or an F-5, and hold it up against the modern, see how small those wings are by comparison. And they just lost
a little bitty wing.
They just lost a T-38, an instructor and a student, I think out near Meridian, Mississippi, I think it was. Or no, was it Meridian or was it Columbus? Anyway, they were flying their T-38 down, and he had a Japanese student up front, and apparently they believe the instructor got distracted by something and didn't notice the guy had let his speed bleed off in the turn, and apparently probably caught the sink rate out of the corner of his eye. And of course, they went to full burner with it, but it had gotten that sink rate that you can't fly out of, you cannot eject out of either, and they wrote it in. I fly with a lot of guys who qualified the T-38, and that is not an airplane you can get behind on, especially at low altitude. And it was designed to train pilots to fly Century Series aircraft like F-100s and the like, which were notoriously unforgiving airplanes, which is why the level of training had to be so high. But and these guys were, getting these J-47 engines and J-75s and other stuff, whatever you get their hands on. They were getting parts from all over the place, and junkyards and everything else, and they were putting afterburners on them. And he talks about
that sounds like a good idea.
Oh man, yeah, they were talking about lighting the burners. I mean, was it Arfon's did about a 400 or 500 mile an hour roll in his car.
What could possibly go wrong?
People forget. One thing is people forget that jet engines. When we think of torque, we think of big radial engines and Mustangs and stuff, those gigantic propellers and P factor and all that stuff trying to turn the airplane. People tend to forget that jets have a rotating body in them, so they generate a torque, a rotational force, a counter-rotational force. And that's one of the problems the guys were talking about with the jets is that they were putting so much weight down in suspension on one side from the counter-torquing effect of the engine. And that resulted in some blowouts. And finally, one of them got smart, put steel wheels on the car. But
it's called procession. Gyroscopic precession.
Precession, yeah. To learn about that for helicopters, and it's but it's and none of these guys are nautical engineers. Hell, half of them didn't even go to college. They're basically. I think that's why I admire these guys so much. Is it was just Kentucky windage. Let's experiment and see what works. And the guys that try to floor it the first times are usually the ones that got themselves killed. Ethel Graham and Glenn Leisher, they were told to take it slow and they didn't. And that's how these guys learn. Art Arfons used to complain that Craig Breedlove, he went so slow in incremental steps it took him forever. Or Art just jumped in and went. And what drove everybody at the wall is Breedlove gets the record. He's getting ready to go on the big promotional tour, and before they even get started, Art just jumps in the car and goes and breaks the record again. It's like, and I talk about how they all had sponsors, and if the other one broke the record when the other one was getting ready for a big promotional tour, it ruined the promotional tour. It's like, nobody, who was the second person to fly the Atlantic, and that kind of thing.
Didn't they used to call the F-104 electric lawn darts?
As the F-16. Every airplane had its nickname. The F-104 was the missile with a man in it. They called the F-16 the electric lawn dart because of the fly-by-wire system. The F-100, of course, was the Hun, and the 102 was the Deuce. The 103 wasn't made. The 104 is a missile with a man in it. 105 was the Thud. And then the 106, of course, was the 6 or the Sexy 6. And the F-110...
Oh, I've never heard that one.
Yeah, the F-110 became the F-4 Phantom. It was the Spectre. That's a cool name for a fighter, the Spectre.
The F-110 became the F-4?
The F-110A. The Phantom, I think, is the last of the actual Century Series aircraft, but it was made as the F-110A and for the Air Force, I believe. And then it was originally a Navy airplane. It was a Fleet Defense Interceptor, which is why it only had missiles. It was made to go shoot down bombers. But then they decided that the Air Force was going to get it, and this is about the time the military was entering this weird, no, I would say weird, they were entering a system where they wanted a uniform name for all the equipment. Because aircraft in the different services had a real alphabet soup of names. It's hard to keep track of them. So the F-4 became the F-4 for every service that used it. So it was used by the Army, the Air Force, and the Marines. The Navy, the Air Force, and the Marines. The Army obviously not allowed fixed-wing aircraft. But that's when pretty much all aircraft names became somewhat uniform throughout the services. At least they all use the same type. And which is why you see a lot of aircraft getting redesignated. The military does it every once in a while. And
I got some question for you along the same lines. I've thought about passingly for years. Why did they stop the Century Series naming? Why did they switch over to single digits again?
That had to do with because the Air Force used one system, the Navy and Marines used another, and this was just what they settled on. Probably.
Okay, so that was it.
Probably, I'm guessing, they came up with that system. Let's see. I'm trying to think. The Navy, I think, had already designated the F-4, so that may be why they went with that. But I'm not exactly 100% sure. I know in the old system, like during World War II, the Navy. If you've built a lot of Marine Corps and Navy aircraft in the Second World War, you've noticed they always have this alphabet soup in front of their name, the OS2U Kingfisher. Well, every letter and every number in there has a specific significance, and the last letter is the manufacturer. So, like the SNJ, the trainer that the Air Force called the AT-6, or Advanced Trainer 6, the SNJ, it was Scout, S. In the Navy, N meant trainer, and J meant North American. That's why the B-25 Mitchell in the Air Force was the PBJ in the Navy, Patrol Bomber North American. And then as you started building more and more aircraft, different versions of aircraft, then you got the numbers. The first aircraft you built of a type for the Navy did not get a number. It was implied. So Grumman's factory designation was F. So the very first fighter, which was a biplane, that Grumman made for the Navy was simply called the FF, Fighter Grumman. The next iteration was the F2F, F3F. The monoplane version was the F4F, which we all know was the Wildcat. Then you get your dash numbers for variations of that. The F4F-3 was a Wildcat that had 450 caliber machine guns and fixed non-folding wings. When they put the folding wings on it and the extra guns, it became the F4F-4. And I remember reading where Jimmy Hatch didn't like the airplane. He preferred the Dash 3 model because he said between the weight of the wing folding mechanism, those extra guns, and all that extra ammunition, he said it was like flying with sandbags in your pockets because it added all that weight. Heck, I think there were some pilots that actually wanted to have the guns pulled out of the outer wing to keep the airplane more agile. But unfortunately, I could be wrong, but I think they cut down the amount of ammo on the inboard guns. But I have to verify that. Some guys preferred 450 calibers because they got longer ammo trays, more trigger time. Some guys preferred having, but you could also switch the guns off. Like you could switch 2 of your guns off, fire 4, and then when they ran dry, then flip the other 2. So there are a couple of ways to do it. That was there's a aircraft nomenclature 101, but it just got out of hand. So I'm guessing, I could be wrong, but I'm guessing the uniform naming system might have had something to do with McNamara. He loved economies of scale. You know, he'd worked in the auto industry, and he was a smart guy. And like they said, when it comes to some things like shoes and things like that, yeah, you can buy one black shoe for all the militaries. That's going to be fine. But there's a reason the Navy flies one kind of aircraft and the Air Force flies another. And what they called McNamara's folly was the F-111, which eventually turned out to be a good airplane, but not for what he had originally planned it for. McNamara had this fantasy that they were going to have one airplane for all the services as a fighter, the TFX program, which is the F-111. And all the Air Force made a great interdiction bomber out of it. Everybody, there's no way that plane was going to be a fighter. It didn't have any of the necessary attributes.
It was also rather large.
Well, that was one problem. But it was also very fast, you know, although the engines were pretty problematic.
Oh, yeah, that thing could do, what, Mach 2.5?
Yeah, well, depends on the altitude and a lot of other things and how you're...
Right. Yeah, clean and all that. Yeah, we talked about that before.
That brings up something else I want to mention. You know, we were talking about the F-106 and the CF-105 Aero. And I was thinking about something. You guys are probably familiar with the A5 Vigilante. I remember building a model of the A5 Vigilante when I was, it was before I went to military school, so I was probably 10 years old. And I remember looking at it, and it used to be, I think originally it was called like the A3 or something. They renamed it. But, well, anyway. So, the Vigilante was another Mach 2 airplane. I actually know some people that flew them and worked on them. They were a nightmare to work on. But the Vigilante was like 77 feet long. It was the size of the CF-105, or very close to it. But it wasn't a delta wing, at least not a pure delta. It had a conventional tail on it, and it was supposed to be a nuclear bomber that shot the nukes out a tube out of the back of the tail. As a result, it had no external stores on it, although it could carry auxiliary fuel tanks. But the airplane could come screaming in, pop the tail cone. It had a system that was supposed to eject the nuke out the tail, be parachute retarded. The jet would scream away at Mach 2. Boom, off goes the nuke, and it could carry several of them. Well, they had a lot of problems with the ejection system. It was never reliable. Then the Navy lost that mission, I think, to missiles. But they still had this Mach 2 airplanes. Hey, make a great reconnaissance aircraft. And the guys I know flew them as recon aircraft. I think that was the only combat role they ever had. And if you ever want to paint your Vigilante, normally they're painted navy gray over white, which is the standard paint scheme. But for a very short time, they put them in Southeast Asia camouflage. And I think there's one picture of one landing on a carrier in that paint scheme. That'd make a cool way to paint your model. That'd just be something different. But anyway, the Vigilante was another Mach 2 airplane back in the time of the 106. But it was actually had much longer range. Because since they put the canoe on the bottom for the cameras, they weren't going to have the bombs, so they could actually put extra fuel tanks, removable fuel tanks, in that tube between the engines where the bombs used to go. there were some problems with it. It was a very complex airplane, a lot of sophisticated electronics, very hard to keep the maintenance up on it. And there were at least, according to what I was reading, there were at least 3 times they catapulted them off of carriers, and the fuel tanks broke loose and went sliding out the tail of the aircraft, out of that tube, on the catapult launch, and at least one of those resulted in the loss of the aircraft. But still, the guys I know who flew it were talking about how fast it was, and I realized that to get where I was going with this point was, we often talk about the CF-105, the F-106, and these Mach 2 jets and the things that could have been, but it seems like the 60s really were the heyday of Mach 2 airplanes. Look at how many Mach 2 aircraft came out in the 60s. It's like we'd finally gotten the engines up to power and the aerodynamics down pat enough. Everything from the MiG-21, Vigilante, the Delta Dart, the CF-105 Aero, and we already had the F-104 Starfighter, but back in the 50s. But that thing had very little range, carried very light weapons, was a day VFR aircraft. It wasn't a very big airplane. It was fast. But now we're talking about Mach 2 airplanes with some really decent range on them, aerial refueling capability, some serious payloads, even the potential to drop nuclear weapons. And, you look at all these magnificent aircraft, and you stop and think about it. There were people who probably worked on those airplanes in the design bureaus or something, or saw them fly, that were old enough to remember the Wright brothers flying. That's some pretty wicked advancement. And
well, if you look at from the Wright brothers to landing on the moon, what's that, in less than
66 years? 66
70 years?
66. 1903 to 1969.
Yeah. So from,
there were a lot of
landing
people
on the moon.
There were a lot of people, probably millions of them, who saw Neil Armstrong step on the moon that were old enough to remember opening up a newspaper and seeing the right picture of the right flyer, making its famous flight at Kitty Hawk. Meanwhile, cars still had tail vents.
Those were men
who did manly things in a manly way. And we built models of them. Ha ha. Here's your question, all you jet builders. What is your favorite, we'll say, let's just call it 60s era, your favorite Mach 2 jet to build? Now, I've got a couple F-106s, and I've got an F-104, and I've got a CF-105 now, so I'm gonna have to build a Vigilante to complete I'm probably missing a couple of Mach 2. I need to build a MiG-21, and probably a couple others. But the MiG-21 is nice thing about. Oh, actually, I do have a MiG-21. Only it's a little 1 to 144 scale, and it's at Israeli markings. But the MiG-21. What?
Gavin said men were men and women were happy about it.
F-106. There we go. Lockheed 749. Right. I had some people send some ideas for builds, but we've already got build ideas out for the next 2 years, so I don't know when we'll get around to them. But that's what viewers' builds are for, if you ever just want to build something different. But, speaking of models, getting back to some models I have in the show. One of you wonderful people sent me a couple of models from the Area 88 anime. And, of course, it comes with decals for Air Force markings or for the anime. And, by the way, there are some new ones up at Hurricane Hobbies of the Kafir in Area 88 markings, which is a Japanese anime. And I felt like, you know what? I need to do these in the anime. I mean, this is what this kit was really intended for. And it'll just be something a little bit different. And I know I just recently got a picture of a 740, some pictures of a 747 that'll be in the next viewer's build that somebody put sort of a fantasy paint scheme on. And I think Calder, the guy who did the wild paint job for Braniff, would be impressed by it. But you guys will see it in the viewer's build. But anyway, I decided I need to learn a little bit about this Area 88 anime to, build the models with a little, you always build a better model when you have some sort of connection with the subject matter. And I watched, I guess it was the first, major episode of it, and I was like, this was in some ways better than it had any right to be. I mean, the aircraft are pretty accurately drawn. A lot of the technology in the flaps. The guy starts off flying an F8, and basically he's.
That was Ricky that sent that kit.
Oh, thank you, Ricky. I appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead and do them as the two Area 88 planes, and as Mickey's, I think it's Skyman's, but point I'm getting at is that modelers sometimes tend to hit a little bit of a burnout because you're doing all this research and you're always trying to get everything just right. And I really enjoy once in a while just taking a model and making it something, a what if build, if you will, and something like that. And F-104, you could chop up an F-104. And anyway, but and I looked at the kits; they're pretty straightforward. And I realized that they're just an F-100 and an F-20 Tigershark kit that were reboxed with different decals and different artwork. But that's okay. I mean, that's all it takes. My brother had the little, I think it's 1/72 scale F-20 Tigershark, and it staggers my mind when I think about how long ago this was, because I remember when these things came out, and this is cutting edge technology back when Chuck Yeager was trying to help sell the F-20. He was their sales guy, and I'm like, my God, that was the 70s, man, or the 80s, and you tend to forget the 80s were 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. Hurts to say that.
Well, for some of us.
No, I'm talking about what?
There are some younger guys out there.
Oh, one of my favorite things is, oh yeah, I built that kit in '86, or I did that in '87. Some coworker of mine was like, I wasn't even born yet. I'm like, go away. Oh well. But the F-20. What?
Chuck said, I guess you could consider the F-20 as a real world kit bash.
That's not bad. Real world kit bash. It was supposed to be a competitor for the F-16, but there's nothing wrong with the F-20. The reason it never got any sales is simple. The F-16 was already out there in big numbers, and some people talk about a couple of performance edges that the F-20 had. Like, that doesn't compensate for the logistical advantages of the F-16. Virtually every allied country has some variant of the F-16. All the mechanics know how to work on it. The parts distribution is everywhere. It was designed as an export fighter. And I can remember when I I can't believe that thing came out when I was in high school. I can remember being in high school and opening up, and they were talking about complaining about an F-16. I kid you not, this is the way the article read. Now, mind you, we're talking 1979. The F-16 was supposed to be a low-cost fighter at only $6 or $7 million a copy, but now they've turned out to cost almost $13 million a piece. And I'm kind of like, you couldn't buy the drop tanks or the accessory package for an F-16 for $13 million today. And even adjusting for inflation. But, the airplanes are still manufactured. I mean, it's a platform that does the job. Parts are everywhere. The experience base is everywhere. And you're going into your third generation of people that have worked on the airplane. If somebody bought the F-20, they would have none of that to draw on. And that's why, what is it they call it? Critical mass. The F-16 has critical mass. One reason the MiG-21 stayed along for so long. Everybody and their brother used it. Parts were everywhere. They were cheap. But they did the job-ish. But anyhow, what about kits from shows Space 1999? I have a couple that you guys sent me that I'm waiting to build that Eagle. And the Space 1999 kits, I think have stayed fairly popular. Some of them, like the moon base, I think it's hard to find those. But, that guy, you guys probably remember the television show UFO. Space 1999, they used the props from that and modified them, because it was supposed to be the second season of UFO, and then for some reason it didn't get a second season. I'm not sure if the issues between Jerry and Sylvia Anderson had something to do with that, or it was just what the network decided to do. But I think, they made a model, I think, of Ed Straker and Paul Foster's cars, I think. Yeah, see, these are the kind of properties that if you were to make them now, I'm sure you would make sales because there's still enough people like us that remember them. Oh, that was so cool. So what did you prefer, Ed Straker's car or Paul Foster's car? Because Foster's had that big scoop on it. At first, I think I liked Foster's better, but over time, I think Straker's kind of grew on me. I think that was built over a Ford Granada frame, and weird steering wheel and everything. It all looks cool on camera, but they say you get in that thing, try to drive it, it's a nightmare. Same for the Piranha from The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Look cool, but what's his name? Not Robert Vaughn, but the other one, David McCallum, was saying the thing was so difficult to get in and out of, and you're in this plexiglass bubble, didn't have air conditioning. He hated that thing. And they pestered the director to get rid of it. The Piranha. And it had a little propeller on it. It still makes car shows. Somebody sent me a picture of it recently. And no prisoners. Dinky. It was Dinky that did them. I think Dinky did everything. Hiroshima makes most of Jerry Anderson's models. And it's kind of cool when you think about it. These guys, these Imagineers, they carve these things out of wood to make a TV show. But the courtesy of the the advances in electronics, all of us have this pumped into our brains when we're kids. And the next thing you know, you can show a picture of one of these cars, out in just about any country in the world, and somewhere there's going to be somebody. Oh, I remember that. It's just amazing. Cars have become more famous than have become characters in their own rights in a lot of cases. Classic example, Baby, the Impala from Supernatural. And
one of your favorites.
My favorite. Yeah, that's definitely one of my top 10 favorite Hollywood cars. And
so you almost bought one.
Yeah, until I realized what people, because of the show, you could have gotten an Impala, 67 Impala, 4-door, hardtop, not the sedan, the hardtop, for about $4,000 or $5,000 before that show came on. And if it was in really good shape as a collector car, $8,000 or $9,000. Now they're $40,000 if they're restored. And I'm like, don't get me wrong, guys. I love that car, but it's still just an Impala. Now, if it's the sedan, which has the post and everything, you can cut those prices by more than half. And but a lot of people have done tribute cars. There are a lot of, in fact, they've used them. They've used tribute cars in the show a couple of times. They filmed one episode up in Canada to bring the Impala in because it's considered industrial equipment, and the guns and everything for the props into Canada was an enormous logistical nightmare. I'm sorry, I got that backwards. The show shot in Canada. They were coming to the States. Bringing it into the States is going to be a logistical nightmare. So they found a super fan who had made a copy of the car, and they rented it from him. He also had copies of their guns, so they rented those also from him. Only his weren't blank fire guns. His was a working Taurus PT-92 and a working Norinco 1911A1.
Steve's Model Mania says a 1967 Impala 4-door. Gag me with a shift knob.
Hey, my brother's chiming in. I wonder if I can get him to answer him without hanging up on you. Hang on, Ken. I'm going to see if I can answer this. If I lose you, I'll call you back. Answer
the 2-door post
Put
back.
Ken on hold. Hey.
Hey.
I'm doing a live stream. You watching?
Yeah, I saw you. That's I have YouTube.
Well, you are in Mississippi. I wasn't quite sure just how backward y'all were.
Yeah, really. Enough to know that you're talking about another one of my models, my F-20 Tigershark.
That's it. That was the one.
Yeah. Am I getting any royalties? I think not.
Of course not. Just be glad I didn't, destroy it like I did the F-14. I didn't really destroy
I don't know
it.
what happened to it. I remember the kit.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I ever saw that thing was in an issue of Aviation Leak and Spy Technology.
Oh, the greatest magazine ever.
Back when they called it the F5G.
Yeah. For good.
Yeah, it had a bigger wing and an F-404 engine, I think.
I think it was the F-404. It also had a glass cockpit with a pretty hopped up radar.
Yeah, it was a good jet, but I think understand that everybody wanted what the Air Force had, which was the F-16, so nobody ever bought it.
Well, like I was saying earlier, is that if you got the F-20, you didn't have any logistics chain, you didn't have any knowledge base. The F-16 was a turnkey operation with parts all over the world.
Yeah, well, you remember that, the F-16-79?
Is that the one I made for the Israelis? They had to put their own engine in?
Well, they took an F-16, stuck a J-79 in it to try to sell it to people that basically had Phantoms, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, of course, it was a dog, I'm sure, by comparison. But didn't you build the F-16 XL, the thing with the crank arrow wing?
No, you did.
Oh, was that me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I remember the crank arrow
that
wing.
Was really supposed
had
to
a lot of capability.
If you guys, I'll see if I can find a picture if you want, but if you guys are familiar, they made an F-16 with a cranked arrow wing. It looks like a Delta wing, but it's in two stages. It sweeps back and then it sweeps out. And apparently, it was a heck of an airplane too. Had a lot more wing than an F-16. Had more hard points. I don't know why they didn't build that, because my understanding is it was a smoking aces machine.
Well, I think one problem though, it was a lot of workload for one person.
Well, I think they had a 2-seat version.
Well, yeah, Owen may have. Yeah, but they came out a lot of variations of the F-16 back then. I caught enough of your live stream the other day to see you once again bemoaning the demise of the Avro Arrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen some of the YouTube videos on the Avro Arrow, like the fantasy videos?
Uh-huh.
Like Operation Broken Arrow, where there's always been a secret squadron of them up in Canada.
Shh, you're not supposed to know about that. It's a secret.
Yeah. It's all part of Shadow.
Yeah. Well, like I was saying, the Arrow never got a fair shake. They only flew it for 71 hours. Who knows what that airplane could have been turned into over time with, a proper development program, good radar and missiles, and the Iroquois engine that it never got.
It was no voodoo.
Oh, God. The doo-doo.
Excuse me, use voodoos.
Either Diffenbaker, take your bull marks on our second-hand McDonald's jets that we're retiring.
I think that sunk Avro, too, didn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. And
that and their hover car.
Well, didn't help that that Convair in North America and everybody went up to Canada and said, "Wow, you engineers are pretty good. How'd you like to move to the States for 4 times the money?"
Canadians.
I tell you right now, you want to start a bar. I am convinced if you want to start a bar fight in Toronto, all you got to do up there is go, "So who thinks Diffenbaker was great and who thinks he wasn't?" And just sit back and watch,
But no, I was like, well, here it is, a Saturday night. We have all these cable channels, and the best thing on is my brother's YouTube stream. Of course, we don't have the best cable package, but still. When are you going to start your B-29 build, as in, the one your father worked on build,
I've got one on the shelf.
Which one?
A little 1-144 mini craft, because if I build the big one that was sent to me, I'm going to have to put another room on the house to display it.
Oh, so that's all part of the plan.
Shh. She isn't supposed to know that yet.
What, I haven't seen you one of those 1/32 scale Lancasters? Come on, man. I might as well send you a real one.
That I would make room for.
Yeah. But I guess you could convert. I think Dad worked on WB-29s, didn't he?
Shh, don't kid yourself. You know what I learned recently? Our father didn't work on. Our father didn't work on weather planes. He worked on radiation spy planes disguised as weather planes. That probably explains why you've lost your hair. All that time around radiation particles.
It's probably why I didn't have any kids. I was watching the other day. Remember those old nuke tests in the 50s and 60s?
Ken, can you hear me better now? I think I got too far away from the microphone. What about the nuke tests of the 50s and 60s?
You just need to watch them. The old Starfish Prime, or it was Operation Fishbowl.
Who comes up with these names? it's Operation Starfish Prime, Operation Fishbowl. I'm like, you
Well,
know.
what it was, what this was, I mean, here was at Johnson Atoll, which I had been to when I was in the military, and they were launching these things on Thor missiles, shooting them up to see what it was like. Hey, what would happen if we detonated a 3.5 megaton warhead at 250,000 feet? I don't know. Let's launch one and find out.
Okay, this says merge. I think maybe I can do a three-way call with you, me, and I think we're about to conference call with Ken, if I'm doing this right. I'm not the greatest with technology. Ken, you there?
Yeah.
I am here now.
Okay, we got a three-way phone call going.
Yeah, it's Steven.
Hey, Steven, how you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm fine.
Okay,
No,
Ken, everyone else can hear me.
Yeah, those fishbowl things are, you watch them, you go, my gosh, I can't believe these guys did this. I mean, you know, they shoot a nuke up 3.5 megatons. You'll see what happens if you detonate 250,000 feet.
They were the heady days of the Cold War, where you detonated multi-megaton warheads just to see what would happen. You know what happens? Godzilla. That's what happens. You knew I was going to get Godzilla in this conversation.
It blew out 300 stoplights in Hawaii, 900 miles away.
Oh, I think it took out a few windows.
The EMP.
And Werner Braun standing on the island going, well, what you know?
Yeah. It set off. It was so funny. It was setting off car alarms.
Tesla would have been thrilled.
Oh yeah, it was great stuff, man.
I just love that name, Starfish Prime. I mean, it sounds like like one of the characters out of Transformers. I am Starfish Prime.
Well, the thing was, when they launched them, Prime meant it was a second attempt.
Oh,
Starfish failed because the Thor blew up. In fact, they blew like 3 of them up.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, the Thor. I think they were launching them on 4 missiles, and of course, when it went awry, they would hit the detonate button or whatever. But so Starfish failed. The Starfish Prime was the second attempt to launch one that high and that big. That was the biggest one they set off. They were setting them off at different altitudes. They did some in the late 50s, but they didn't have really good recording gear.
Hold on.
And they did it in the early 60s. It tagged all their recording gear off the meter, so they didn't get that much intel anyway, because it was kind of like, oh, this thing's really bad. Yeah.
Hold on. I just realized we're not doing the proper math here. Think about this.
Yeah.
We're putting a nuclear bomb onto a missile. The first 3 missiles blew up, but we're going to try again. Is anybody seeing an inherent danger with this math? Like, hey, what if the missile goes up, arms the warhead, and then fails, and the warhead comes back down? Well, we'll never know.
You remember the Genie?
Yes.
You know, they did one live launch from a F-89 Scorpion of a Genie.
Uh-huh. Genie was a free flight,
on it?
small nuclear air-to-air missile made to take out an entire Russian bomber squadron.
Right. And so
Like the Beaumark.
On a much smaller scale.
The guys in charge of the program said, look, it's safe to do it. And so to prove it, they stood underneath
it.
the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, in their blues, while they set the nuke off about 30,000 feet above them.
Well, first off, they were wearing khakis. I've seen the footage.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But I remember that they were talking about this as a perfectly safe nuke. Words you don't normally put together. A perfectly safe nuclear warhead. And so the thing detonated at 30,000 feet, and they were on the ground directly under ground zero when it went off. And, pretty much, you see them get gusted by a little wind and some dust, and that's it. And all of them lived normal lives, so, they didn't get zapped radiation. The idea was it was supposed to go into a bomber squadron, blow up all the Russian bombers, and somehow I don't think a little 1.5 KT was going to do as much damage as they hoped. But like they said, we could send a whole squadron of them up.
Well, these were people who probably built unfiltered camels too. So.
We're talking about the generation that didn't know what a seatbelt was. They had quarter windows in the car specifically so they could flick ashes out the window. Do you guys remember the TV show Law and Order? Jerry Orbach?
Yeah.
Okay. Jerry Orbach was an inveterate smoker. Kind of like old Andreas Katsoulis Jakar from Babylon 5.
Yeah.
Both of them were heavy smokers, right? And
well, Jakar was a cigar smoker, I think, but yeah.
Well, anyway, what does he said about him? He smoked with a passion.
That's hard to describe.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so Orbach one of the car wranglers thing was on VinWiki was talking about this. He got to sit in the car with Orbach when it was raining outside. Orbach thought that getting rid of quarter windows in cars was a safety hazard because people still smoke and they didn't have any place to flick their ashes or whatever, or vent the smoke out. And he'd actually gone to Congress and testified to this fact to try and make quarter windows in cars mandatory. So next time you're working on your model car and you're working on the quarter window, turn that thing around and, have your driver flicking a cigarette out the window or something.
Well, I'm going to have to get off the phone here. We can talk about this stuff, but I want to just call in and say hey.
Hey. Well, thanks for checking in.
All right.
Well, before you go, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay, these Thors that blew up on launch that had nuclear bombs on them, did they go get them, or they just let them lay there?
They just say they hit the detonate on them. I mean, they didn't detonate the nukes on them. I don't know what they did.
I imagine they policed them up.
But I don't know.
I got my Thor right up here.
It's on YouTube. You can see all the test projects they did, how they went, what happened, and everything. It was pretty amazing. But then they banned them, the treaties after that. So, all right. Well, I'm gonna run.
Okay.
You guys take care.
Take care.
All right.
Right.
Bye.
Well, we learn something new every day, whether we want to or not. And unbelievable. Well, we put a nuclear bomb on a missile. I got my Thor right here. The last three blew up, but let's just keep screwing nuclear weapons onto the tip. One of them's going to make it into space and go boom.
I guess those things are effective ways to blow out the traffic control system in a hostile country.
Yeah, that was what they were used for. God. I mean, I really can't help but feel that we grew up in the best time. You could go to a grocery store and find cool toys or model airplanes or cars. Guys were making hot rods and jalopies. We were making models of those guys making, hot rods and jalopies. Jets made a lot of noise and chugged black smoke. Men smoked, unfiltered Camels and, man. Just...
Oh, John Smith Ashley brings up an interesting point. You could carry at least a queen-size mattress in most cars' trunks. I had a car like that.
Yeah. Okay, just real quick. How many of you ever rode on the back shelf under the rear window in the family car? Now, we had a station wagon, so we were just all piled in the back of the thing. If we got rear-ended by the truck, we were just going to be kitty squash. But it's just... Or jump trash cans on your bicycle or your big wheel, or road go-karts or motorcycles without a helmet, or just jumped out of trees, climbed trees. Can you imagine a helicopter mom watching her kid actually climb a tree with no safety gear and just we were a bunch of little spider monkeys.
Shoot, we had a mini bike actually belonged to my brother, and we'd go out to the trail and we'd ride that thing till it broke to the point where we couldn't ride it anymore. And if we didn't hit at least one tree or drag our face through the mud at least once, we didn't have fun.
You bragged about how many stitches you got or bones you broke and having your friends sign your cast and
Oh yeah. Shoot, that was part of the whole process.
Yeah, the Thor was a normally a reliable rocket, but this is back in the early days when it was all brand new. And
I remember
mini bikes and jumping ramps. Heck yeah, baby!
I went up this. It must have been about a 4-foot jump. It was dirt, and I went up there, and while I'm in midair, I'm looking down, thinking, I'm really high. This is going to hurt.
Oh, okay. Now I never pulled it off, but how many of you guys went all the way around on a swing set? I mean, we got going up so high that the ends were coming out of the ground, but I never actually was able to get all the way around. I did get some 0G at the top and fall back in the seat, and the chains would jerk because I had lost my momentum. But
yeah, I've done that a few times. I can't imagine going all the way around.
Yeah, I've heard kids say they did. I'm not sure they ever actually did.
I think they were making that up.
Probably. What? A little kid lie and brag? Say it ain't so, Joe. Say it ain't so. Oh, God, they were good times. Ah, but what is it that the stunt writer, the evil? You know, I mean, one of the biggest names when we were kids was Evel Knievel. Can you imagine parents letting someone like Evel Knievel even exist today? You know, it's like, my child's not watching that. He'll get bad ideas. And we were outside on our bicycles building ramps, you know. You can't buy memories like that. Glad I have some.
I do remember as a little kid riding that, behind the back seat and that space back up there. I do remember doing that. I also remember standing up in the back seat of my dad's Edsel as we drove down the road.
Your dad had an Edsel?
He did.
Huh.
A real Edsel. It was the Ranger.
Huh.
They had three different models of them. We had the Ranger.
And to be clear, it's not like we've gotten any better. I'll guarantee you, if I wanted to get any of you to get yourselves in trouble, all I would have to do is give you a small turbine engine and a little pocket cash and an idea. And everyone out there would be either rigging it to a motorcycle or a mini bike or something. Because turbines are fun.
Yeah, you can get little turbines for RC airplanes. You could do that with.
Gonna need something bigger than that, Ken. Where I'm thinking minimum 200-pound thrust. Because I know I'd be looking for some derelict Cessna fuselage to just figure out where to mount this thing. I'm going to have my Jet 150.
And what's wrong with mounting about 8 or 10 of them out there on the wing?
Well, those things are pretty finicky. I mean, you know. But although I did have an idea for getting a pusher, like a very easy or velocity, and putting like a dozen of those engines in a ring around the aft end. But, I mean, theoretically, it should work. Should.
Yeah. Yep, 2-ton blue.
Whoops.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember it had a push-button shifter in it, too. If you wanted to change gears, you just pushed a big old button.
Yeah, that was in the center of the console. That was actually one of the problems with the cars, I understand it. They were a little ahead. The technology wasn't up to it yet. I had my grandmother's hand-me-down 64 Dodge Polara that had the push-button gears that were on the console, but it was the same thing. But they actually worked pretty well. That by then, I guess they'd ironed it out. I actually never really had that much in the way of trouble with the car. Had that little, was it V8 318 in it, I think, but the small engine they put in the
it was a well-made car. Unfortunately, it was just made for the wrong time period. It was just too expensive for the time.
Yeah, and you know, I ought to buy a model of an Edsel. I mean, that would just look kind of cool sitting on the shelf. You know, an Edsel would be a great car for a kit bash because it's just got that wild look to it. You know, if I ever get the money to do my science fiction movie, one of the spaceships is going to have the front end that you're going to clearly be able to see the Edsel influence on. It's just too cool not to. I mean, it is butt ugly, but it's so ugly, it's kind of cool.
Well, you know where the name Edsel came from, don't you?
Edsel Ford.
What?
Edsel Ford.
Yeah, Ford's son. He named his car after his son.
Yeah.
And then it just went belly up.
Yeah, that's not what you want to be remembered for.
No. Although I always thought the front end was very distinctive. I always kind of thought the car might eat somebody.
Yeah, that would have been the car to make Christine out of.
Ooh, yeah, that would have been good.
Not if Christine had been an Edsel, she never would have started reliably or gotten anywhere on time.
I don't know. Ours ran pretty good. I don't ever remember having to jump it.
Well, I was thinking more of the transmission. That, my understanding is that was the weak link in those things. But because it was all electronic back, I mean, come on, we're talking about, diode and servo electronics. By the way, guys, about a week ago, Ken tried to explain electric theory to me, and wattage and volts and stuff. And for some reason, even though I kind of understand the concept, I just have trouble retaining it more than about 10 minutes. But all I can remember is that, the Edsel, I think it had an electronic transmission in it, which was, a lot of people said was its real undoing. Oh, Ed's auto review on the Edsel, yeah. I think I've seen it, but I'm not sure what killed the Edsel. Was it just?
It was the economy. It was the wrong car. It was
Would it come
the
out
wrong
in
car at the
58?
wrong time.
You come out in 58?
The car is huge.
Yeah, and I remember we had a recession in '58, so all of the car makers were hurting. When I did that video, '70s, the decade that changed America, I talked about car production, and a lot of people don't realize how bad the recession was. In the '70s, car production in the United States dropped by, I want to say, almost 60%. I mean, it was bad. And the gas lines and everything else, but
When was this?
73.
I remember those days. I remember having to sit in those lines waiting for that gas.
Yeah.
I remember sometimes it was so bad that people would just go out there the night before and park their car in the line, and then go out and wait for the gas station to open.
I remember seeing at least one news story of someone robbing a gas station but not taking the money. They just made them fill the car up. I mean, at gunpoint. Like a stick-up job, except they just had him top the car off and they took off. It's like, holy crap.
Oh, yeah. Fuel truck drivers were having to carry shotguns with them to protect themselves and keeping the truck from getting stolen.
Well, I remember that was happening also during the trucker strike in '77. There was the Wildcatters were still driving, but there was a nationwide Teamsters trucker strike, and I remember seeing photographs in the newspaper of truckers that were shot dead from highway overpasses by truckers that were union truckers that were killing the Wildcatters who were still driving, and there were several that were killed. They got to the point they had to start sticking high patrolmen on virtually every highway overpass. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, it was.
I hadn't heard about that.
Well, your dad was a truck driver. I thought you'd been familiar with it. That was I was in high school when that happened. So I want to say it was 76, 77. I may be wrong about that. But it was in the 70s. And now we can't find truckers.
Brought up Ralph Nader about remember the Corvair?
Yeah, and unsafe at any speed. I've heard some people say that the car got a bad shake, and other people were like, yeah, he may have been onto something. I've ridden in a Monza one time. A guy came visit us. I think it might have been the first convertible I rode in. It was a blast.
My uncle had two of them. I remember riding in that car all the time.
Well, what do you guys think about the Monza? Do you think the Corvair was unsafe at any speed, or was Ralph Nader just making stuff up to make himself popular? Of course, you got to think about, the engine in the back, the CG and stuff, but crap, the Germans were racing rear-engine mounted race cars in the 20s and 30s. Was it the Auto Union? That was the first one to have the engine in back, and it was winning races, although they did lose some of them because of the CG being off. So there's actually a couple of pretty good models of that car available, too. That was... well... My dad always felt the Corvair got a bum rap. Waiting to see if anybody out here. I see Corvairs flip for no reason. I've
never seen that.
Money on investments. Yeah, I'll let the guy. I'll let the car guy.
Now.
Yeah, we're getting some hits on that now. I'll let some guys. I'll let you guys who know more. Okay.
Yeah,
just need a sway bar. That makes sense.
Cheap.
I think a sway bar would have cured that problem. You could probably install one now. And
I actually briefly worked in a gas station for a while. The owner of the station had just bought it and apparently didn't have a clue on how to run a business. So when he hired me, he just said, during the week, just stop on by and help us out. I'm like, okay.
John Ashley Smith was. Go ahead.
Some nights there were four of us sitting out there, I remember one time I went over and bought an ice cream, and I'm sitting there licking an ice cream while I'm filling up people's cars.
Well, I remember John Ashley Smith was asking anybody remembers the 1980 film with Roy Scheider called Sorcerer. I never saw the movie, but I do remember the trailers for it. It shows the truck on the swaying bridge in the rain or whatever. But the reason I remember that was I think that was Roy Scheider's first movie after Jaws, or at least the first one I saw him advertise because it was on television. You know, so go see the Sorcerer, and I was saying, wow, ever since he did Jaws, that Roy Scheider guy has been getting a lot of work.
That's a little car that had a face like someone sucking a lemon.
That's a good one. All right, that was
Thanks,
fun.
William.
That's a good one, William. Yeah, VW bugs are the one everyone I know is ragging on. Apparently, they were just little death traps, but they were cheap. But if you got hit in one, you were toast. And a VW.
Oh yeah, and had to roll the windows down before you shut the door. In the Volkswagens?
You had to roll the windows down before you shut the door?
In a Volkswagen, yeah, because the things are airtight. You'd blow your eardrums out if you shut the door too tight. Too fast.
The German engineering. The thing I remember about the VW bugs was that everybody being in an aviation family, everybody wanted the motors out of them for their little home-built airplanes. In fact, they had a really easy-to-build home-built called a Volksplane. It was called the Volksplane because it used the Volkswagen engine. And it was just a wooden box with some slab wings on it. As home builds went, it was about as basic as you can get. Well, guys, it's going on 9 o'clock. We're just about that time.
Wow, already.
Yeah, man, time flies when you have good. And this is great, just a gab session. Just talking about anything and everything. I had some stuff to get us kicked off, but other than that, I want to thank again Bruce again for these cool magazines and it's. We come here to talk about kit models, and we usually fit some of that in here, but we wind up going off on the coolest tangents. Well, anyway, guys, I'm going to loop the outro here so you guys can chat amongst yourselves for a little while. And that's pretty much all I've got for tonight. Like I say, I'll be heading out to work. Before I go, let me check one thing real quick. I think we're going to have a live stream next Saturday. I'm just checking my schedule. Let's see here. Yes or no? No, we're not. No. I am sorry. We will not be having one. I will be at work. The next one will be on the 9th. At least that's the plan. So there will not be a live stream next Saturday night. Well,
that's the July 4th weekend anyway.
Well, yeah, it is, isn't it? Trey, I look forward to seeing your video on PamsCon. And guys, well, thank you for checking in with us tonight. Hope you had a good time. I want to thank my brother Steven for calling in. I want to thank everybody for all the cool stuff. And you know what? I think I will take this little jet with me and see if I can't do a road build. But no guarantees because it'll depend on how the work schedule goes. Well, I turn over here, look at the great Cugitator. Guys, let's see. There it is. Oops, wrong. Is that the one I wanted? That's not the one I wanted.
What are you trying to do?
I was looking for that cool picture, but... Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll just put all these back up. They're cool.
I still like the one about the two women looking in the hobby shop window.
Oh, classic. I'm keeping that one. Guys, take care of yourselves, and as always, model on.